All right. Okay, so we want to make sure that you all have sound out there, and pretty easy to do that. Hey folks. The sound of typing. So, let's see if anybody out there is following. All right. So here we are. Is anybody there? Okay. I don't think so. I'm just going to eat a little bit while I wait, because it appears that there's only one watching. That's me. Someone has joined up. Just getting started. Forgot dinner. Well, actually had a minor calamity. Fixed that. Now getting to dinner. But I'm going to set it aside. Welcome to all of you out there. We got some visual age tonight. Ooh. So, you're looking at Heinsberg, Vermont, and a tiny, tiny, tiny sugar house. And right now, I would say there are lots of people out in Vermont that are doing the same thing. Now, normally, it's a time to hang out with people. It's a time to get out of the house. It's a time to have an excuse to stay up late and have some beers and watch liquid boil. But you know, it's a lot more than that, and it's a lot more fun than that. So right now, what we're happening is this is pretty much, I think, the last boil, the last run of the year. You need cold temperatures at night, like 25 degrees, and 40 in the day. And lately it's been just about 30, 29, 28, and 50. And that's just going to wake the tree up pretty soon. So this is probably it. And so once we get some few more visitors, I will tell you that if you are watching on my site, there's directions there on how to text me if you want to ask some questions. That sound good? Okay, so I'm going to just go about doing what I'm doing right now. And what I'm doing is I've got the last of the sap. We still got some more in the buckets. Last of the sap is up in these wonderful Rubbermaid trash cans, made perfect for this. Never used for garbage, but we got 3 of them, and we're down to 1. So we got about 20 gallons left. In the house, we have every single pan or pot is being used with syrup. We put it all together to bottle it. And we're a tiny operation. We make maybe anywhere from 4 to 6 gallons a year, but that's okay. We'll take that. We'll take that for sure. And my relatives are kind of happy with it too. So I have no idea. Is anybody out there? Or are you all feeling quiet tonight? Don't know. You're probably streaming what? What are you streaming? Bulk watching. Pretty awesome. Okay, so just for the sake of posterity, I'm going to go through my spiel now and tell you how this is done. Show you. First off, we have 3 channels here. Think of these as 3 pans. And in this pan, in this corner, there's a hole. And we bring the sap in here. Got a little nozzle right here. And you can see it dripping out there. This is fresh sap that we've taken out of there, which we took out of the trees. This is dripping in at a slow rate, trying to keep up with the rate of the loss of liquid through steam. Right now the fire's not burning that hot. I didn't want to have too much going on when I got started. So I cooled it off a little bit. I just let it burn out or burn down. Literally. Anyway, so what happens is this is going in. This is probably, it's warming up here. It's probably 90 degrees, 100 degrees, something like that maybe. And it goes in here and it starts to boil around in here. Boiling for water up here, we're at about 1,200 feet. It is about almost 213 degrees. So this gets to 213 and it pushes its way through the hole up this way as it gets hotter. So the cold pushes the heat further and further along, and when it gets over into this, the final channel, so we got one over here, 2 and 3, the final channel comes out as syrup. Woo! Well, not exactly, because there's some things we got to do to it when it comes out. So just so you know, it takes about 4 hours to boil down enough sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. 40 gallons of sap equals 1 gallon of syrup. It's a lot of boiling. So once it gets down to about 218, 217 degrees, or it's kind of looking at the right consistency, then I'll pour it out. I've got a nozzle here, kind of like this one, but it's bigger. And I put a couple of these filters on to get out what's known as niter. It's a mineral, I think, but it tastes nasty. So it's produced by the when you boil sap, it creates niter. So you want to filter it out, and you want to filter it again, and then we finish off the syrup inside. We filter it again, sometimes twice, because we want to get it really clear. So, here's some sap. This is some sap, and it's got some stuff in it. We're late in the season. So excuse me, oh my gosh, I coughed right into you. Oh, this is basically, it's got all sorts of stuff. It starts very, very cold and very clear at the first part of the season, and it has usually the highest sugar content, and it's usually a very simple sugar. And the simple sugar burns at a higher temperature, and burning is what gives maple syrup its color. So as you're boiling it, you're starting to burn the sugar, as anyone who cooks knows, and when you get to 219, it gets a little darker. Well, at the beginning of the season, it will reach 219 sooner, and with less burning. So it comes out lighter. And the old timers call it tourist grade. It's grade A fancy. And tourists will pay top dollars for it. But we prefer the dark amber because it has a lot more maple taste. So, if you take 40 of these and boil them down, you get one of these. Now, you got to admit that it's kind of pretty. And this is what you're doing it for. Sort of. Because I kind of feel that I like sugaring because it's just absolutely, it stops you. It stops you in place. You know, whatever you were doing in there, you got to stop and pay attention to this here. I mean, it's really cool. And by stopping, as we know now, really, the whole world knows now that we're being stopped. We're being told, go to your house, go to your apartment, don't come out, or at least a lot of us are being told it. Schools are closed, stores are closed, we're at home, we're live, I mean, we're binge watching Netflix. We're watching the silliest live stream of some guy in a sugar house in Vermont, for gosh sakes. We're really hard up. Anyway, but it does pause us for enough time to really say to ourselves, what's that over there? What's happening in the woods? What's that sound I hear? The bird. What's that bird? We start to really pay attention to things. We start to slow down. We start to reflect. I am an optimist, and I think we're going to get through this. We really will. It's going to be weird, and I hope that we come out as a changed world. Because I think about one unbelievably good thing that's happening right now. Pollution has diminished all over the world. Earth is taking a deep breath. Earth is sugaring. And so that's what sugaring is. It's just being still. You can't speed it up, really. And you get a nice reward in the end. Now, there are some guys who can speed it up. And one comes to mind is up in Cabot, and Glenn Goodrich, and he started off the same way with about 25 buckets. We got about 40 buckets. Want to see a bucket? Bucket. Boop. Holds about 5 gallons. And on a good day, it'll fill up. And I have about 40 out, as I say. Glenn has 125,000 taps. And the man is great. He's hilarious. And I guess his daughter's taking over. And if you ever go past that, you got to go see it. It's an amazing operation. He's made more innovation. So he's on the totally other end of the spectrum of making maple sugar. This is amateur hour. But I have fun. All right, so a couple of other things. Show you some of my other tools out here. First off, freshly opened, haven't even poured it yet. Oop, get a lot of moths. Storm Along hard cider. Whew, it's very good. My nephew is the brewmaster here, Storm Along in Massachusetts. I'm sure they would deliver it right to your house. And it's best in a glass. My favorite these days is Mass Appeal. Even though I know it stands for Massachusetts, and Vermonters kind of have a certain opinion about Massachusetts people. Okay, so now, how in the world do you get the sap out of the tree? You use a tap. You drill a hole into the side of the tree about that much, and it's 3/16 of an inch hole, and you put one of these babies in. This is a tap. Kind of looks like, I don't know, looks like some kind of 1950s race car or something. Anyway, this is, you know, it comes right out, and this little thing here, you have a hole in the side of the top side of the bucket, and you just hang it right there. Now these are the ones that I used first. Got these for free. I wonder why. They're actually, I like them a lot because they don't go as far into the tree, but they're a 1/4 of an inch, so it's a little bigger hole in the tree, and you know, a little bit more chance that bugs or whatever can get in there and harm the tree. But rest assured, the trees do fine. They don't mind it. They tell us that. They say, hey, you can have a little bit of this. Okay, here's another rig. This is more of almost like a homemade rig. This is when everybody was really getting into kind of tin metal. And here's another oldie. Woo. Okay, so those are the taps. This is what's known as a hydrometer. Well, this is the hydrometer. It looks like a giant thermometer. Imagine putting that in your mouth. Okay, anyway, this has got some weights in it, and it goes in here and it determines the density of the syrup. So I'll pour a little out here. I know it's not anywhere near close yet, but we'll see if it's got any bounce at all. And it doesn't. It goes right to the bottom. So, ain't ready. But that's how you really determine that the syrup is syrup, is by the density. And Vermont thinks it's very special anyway. We all know that. But in terms of syrup, when you think of syrup, you just think of Vermont maple syrup, right? That's it. Yes, and there's a reason for that, because Vermont has traditionally required a greater density than most every other place. If you require a greater density, it's a little thicker, it's a little bit more flavorful. So we feel we have a scientific proof that it's better. So anyway, other tools over here. Water, got to keep hydrated. Oh, I skipped right over this baby. This is a level. And you have to get, this thing has to be level in every direction possible. And when it's not, you'll have an accident in no time with a pan this small, because you can't really load a pan like this up. You just can't get enough heat to keep the boil going. So you're always playing with fire, as it were. What other things I got? Well, this is the little filter, or the little strainer, because you get all sorts of stuff in the sap, such as a moth, and occasionally some bark. And so you get it all out before it goes in. But again, you're filtering it probably 3, maybe 4 times before it gets in the bottle. So there's no danger. Pardon the moment, got to put some wood in. So you just got to keep feeding the beast, as it were. And I've gotten pretty good over the years of only burning my hand once a season. And I've already done it, so I figure, fine, I'm good now. But I do have, these things are like awesome, man. These are Carhartt gloves. I mean, Carhartt is, for those who don't know Vermont, Carhartt is the leading fashion label up in Vermont. We wear it to all our parties. But this thing, this can protect you. And then over here, how to keep your axe sharp. If you don't keep your axe sharp, it will bounce off. And it will bounce off because you're tired and not paying attention too. Oh, I'm looking a little steamy, aren't I? So, file for those times you do miss and you hit a rock, and a little stone. I've had this stone, oh my gosh, this is scary. I've had this stone since 1970. It's still incredible shape. It's really a nice stone. And I used to run, or I used to be a leader in canoe trips up into the Arctic. I mean, up into Wilderness, Quebec. And used to take kids up there. And I used to sharpen all the axes for the entire, we had 4 trips go out each month. And so I got pretty good at it. And then the poker. Now, doesn't this look like this works, man, this works. So that's, again, you try to do it with your glove, but you just want to get playing around with a fire, you got that. And then, again, here are my filters. These are some kind of a mesh fabric, really fine stuff. And then this is made out of wool. So I got 2 of these. And then over here, got a hatchet. This is the most useless tool that I know of. This is so dangerous. I'll happily use an axe for most anything, but this thing is just, you just don't have the same kind of control. I just hate this thing, and I don't even know why I have it out here. Okay, that's it. Oh yes, wood. You gotta have wood. And sugar wood is like the crap wood, the stuff you don't take into the house. It's, you know, wood that's been lying around or whatever. If it'll burn, man, it goes in here. So I'm going to hunt. I have nothing on my texts. I don't know that. Oh, look at this. Hey, Emily. Oh my gosh, how long does it take to make sugar? I think that may be a double question. To make maple syrup, it takes me about 4 hours if I'm paying attention to boil down 40 gallons of sap to get 1 gallon of syrup. Now, sometimes towards the first of the season, it may be 38 gallons because it has a higher sugar content. But to make maple sugar, really make maple sugar, you know, the kind that you eat, I just have never been able to be very successful at it. So if syrup is at 219 degrees when it reaches probably 218, 219 to get to the right density, sugar is like 224, I think, 225, something like that. And it's so tricky. And I've never made it too well. And that doesn't take very long. Hey, Sandra. Hi, Margaret. Oh, look at, I don't know whether these people are there. Oh my gosh, look at that. All right, so that's it. And I don't know what else to tell you except to tell you maybe a couple of jokes or stories. Tell you those. I told this the other night, but I don't think too many of you came back for a second. I bought this, and what it is it's got a fire arch underneath, a firebox, and this evaporator. Just a couple of years ago, when I turned 50, and my Aunt Ruth and my Uncle Frank were alive then, and Ruth called me up. She said, Jeffrey, Frank and I have decided we want to give you $10 for every year that you've lived. So that'd be $500. We're going to write you a check for $500, but I'm only going to send it to you if you agree to buy something unnecessary, something frivolous. And I said, well, I've got just the idea. And she said, now I'm going to be really ticked off if you buy something for your kids, or if you buy something for Ginny, if you do anything like bills. No, this is for something really frivolous. So here it is. So I've been using this little frivolous toy since then. And when it arrived, and I'll jump ahead. Now, my aunt and uncle lived in Porter, Maine, and that's where a lot of, one side of my family came from. And I got it here, and I set it all up, and I looked. I bought it in Vermont, and by a guy in Porter, Maine. Holy mackerel. And I look again, and it's like, oh my God, I know that guy. I went fishing with his dad, and when he was 12. And we went way the heck up in this mountain, and his dad got his Scout stove up on a big rock on the way down, and it was a long way in. And we had to walk in the dark with this 12-year-old boy who learned how to make sugar arches and evaporator pans. So I called him up, of course. But that's a pretty nice coincidence. And the other thing is, I'll tell you, this thing, hydrometer. So when I went up to buy it, I called him up, and I got this guy, Nicky, on the phone. And I said, do you have like small evaporator pans and arches, like hobby size? And the guy said, depends. I said, depends? Depends on what? Depends on when you're coming. And I said, well, I have something I got to do in Montpelier. I could swing up there first next Tuesday. And he said, well, my answer would be yes, we'd have one. It's like, great, cool. And I said, what time do you open? And he said, early. I said, okay, well, how early? Early enough. It was like, oh gosh, this is so great. So I went on up, and I got up there at 7:30 in the morning. And I had to do something at the State House, and I was wearing a jacket and tie, and I walked into this place, which is kind of in the side of a barn, and there was a line. There was a line of these old guys, waiting to get stuff from Nicky. And I was like, no, you guys are all sitting around waiting for me to come in just so you could see this city feller. That's what I was thinking anyway. Anyway, I'm standing in line. These guys are like telling me all about, how many taps are you going to have? And I don't know, maybe 20, 25. Yeah, that's exactly how I started. Yeah. And I asked one fellow, I said, well, how many do you have now? And he says, I have about 850, but my wife thinks that I only got 400. You have to think about that for a moment. It just, I don't know, just cracked me up. So anyway, and then I heard about their disasters, and this was the surprising thing, you know, about Vermont Sugarers. They share everything. They'll tell you exactly how to do things and how to not mess up, and all their tricks and secrets and everything else. And they also tell you about their failures. And this one guy talked about, like, he had this rig, you know, he got up to 100 taps, you know, and he decided he would make this thing and put one of those blue tarps on. And, you know, he was going great. And, went inside, you know, had to go to the bathroom, get another beer, you know, and took my time, came out. Oh my God, that thing had set afire, you know. The pan had burned, flames shot up, lit the blue tarp up, and the whole thing went up like a candle. And he just thought that was so funny. And he's laughing about it, you know, it's great. Anyway, I'm finally getting up. It's finally my turn to get some, and these guys have all stuck around. And, you know, I'm kind of looking, okay, fine. It's like, and I tell Nikki what I want. That's great. We have one right here. We can deliver it for you, and that'll charge you $10 for the delivery. Is that okay? It's like, yeah, that's fine. Price seemed reasonable, and still under that $500 mark. And then one of the guys said, well, how are you going to tell whether it's syrup or not? It's like, I guess I get it to 218 degrees. And everybody goes, no. You need a hydrometer. I said, what's a hydrometer? Oh my God, Nicky, get him a hydrometer. So he comes out with this. Well, one like this. I broke that other one. And I look at it, this is pretty cool. And then out of Nicky's other hand comes this. And this is what Nicky sold me. So you got to have something to put the thing in when you drip it in. And when it floats, you know, it gets to that red line, it's syrup. It's great. I said, how much is that? It's like $29.95. Everybody howled. Oh my God, Nicky, you're not going to charge that man that much money. That's terrible, Nicky. And so they talked him down to $19, which I did greatly appreciate. And then we went through all the filtration process, and they took care of me. And then when I got all the stuff and started to walk out, all the guys followed me out, shook my hand, and wished me luck, and said, don't worry when you mess up. So that was sugar. And I don't know whether there's anyone else out there. Oh, there are a few people. Wow. Oh, look at you. Abigail, Lizzie, hey, Lil. Jacob. Wow. So, I guess it's hard not to be philosophic out here, given what's happening in the world. And I do feel like the world centers on sugaring. This is what we're doing right now everywhere. We're knitting, we're baking, we're connecting with the person we live with, if we live with someone. We're just figuring things out. We're reflecting. I have been occasionally slipping in and ranting about the news, but as long as I stay out here, I'm safe. But I think that it's going to bring a change, and I'm really curious as to what's going to happen. Whether we really start to pay attention to, like, holy mackerel, our healthcare system is messed up, and why is it that we've got this pandemic, and it's the hardest hit are the ones that are the least able to afford it, you know. think of all the people in Vermont, oh my gosh, you know, that are just like day to day. Think of the people struggling with opiate addiction up in northern Franklin County, you know, which is up near the the Canadian border. And those guys, in order to make their meetings, in order to make their parole board, and make all the things that they got to do to stay on the straight and narrow, they've got 2 or 3 appointments every day, and they got to get that bus at 7:30 in the morning. And what if that bus isn't working? And oh my gosh, they get into town and the offices are closed or whatever. They can't go to their support group. It's an amazing time. So I sit out here in the placid safety of my sugar house, and I think of my family, my kids, and I think of all the real beauty in the world, and the beauty that I'm so lucky to see, I gotta say. It's amazing. And I feel pretty darn lucky. And so I've decided that even though my retirement fund is taking a bit of a hit, that I'm going to give some money. And, you know, I'm going to hunt around and, you know, figure out where best to give some money to help people. And, you know, because we got to reach out to people now in a virtual sense, but we also have to really remember it when things get back more to normal. Okay, sermon over. Time for some of Ben's cider, also known as Stormalong. So, do any of you have any questions out there? If you do, you can text me or no questions. I got Emily's. Okay. A couple of questions that I had the last time I tried this, although this time it's actually working. Was, are we taking the blood of the tree? Which I gotta say stumped me. And I was then asked whether, you know, we were in fact vampire sugarers, and in fact we are. I was also asked what happens to the sap when it gets really cold. And basically, gravity pulls it down. And what happens, you know, it's all about physics, and it's about temperature change. So the cold goes to the hot the same way as it does here. And from the ground, the water comes up when the tree heats up. It's almost like a vacuum. It pulls it up. And you want days that are 40 degrees in the day, 25 at night. That's perfect. And you don't want a south wind. I don't know why. Someone told me this. A guy named Dave Palmer, God rest his soul. And he told me that, and I was like, sure, Dave. And he's right. Every time there's a south wind, even if the weather's been perfect, it's just not a good run of sap at all. And sorry, gotta tend to taking out this scum, which is a little niter. That stuff I told you gotta filter out. Okay, so now got to get a little bit more sap.